Hello, friends. My name is Harris Valentine, and I'm from Italy. People here call me a pharmaceutical expert. I run a company where we create new kinds of medicines. Italy's pharmaceutical industry is pretty small, but I want to build the biggest pharmaceutical industry in the world. We perform all kinds of experiments here, trying to develop new treatments and medicines. I've been doing this work for the last 5 years. But the shock we received in 2020 was something we had never experienced before. Corona spread destruction everywhere in such a terrifying way. Even I was left speechless, staring in disbelief. We needed to create newer and better medicines as quickly as possible so we could fight diseases like that. We couldn't create the corona vaccine. Other countries around the world managed to develop it before us. That's when I realized, even after being a major pharmaceutical company, our experiments were still falling behind. We needed to create something different. We needed to discover new methods. But how were we supposed to discover them? Our technology was slowly falling behind, and my dream of ruling the world felt like it was breaking apart. How can we truly eliminate these diseases? Who knows where nature keeps bringing these new illnesses from? For house, placing them right in front of us, and then we're forced to fight them. Sometimes we fall, but we stand up again. Corona caused the same destruction in 2020. We fell, and then we stood back up again. That's when I thought, what if I could create a medicine capable of handling all these diseases on its own? Why can't a single vaccine destroy every disease? That was just my thought. And the biggest scientists laughed at me. Because diseases work differently. They affect different bodies in different ways. Some people die, while others survive. Even scientists still can't fully explain why. I only wanted to ask one thing. Can't one vaccine wipe out every disease? They said, no. And quietly, I walked out of that conference. I wanted to teach them a lesson. But more than that, I wanted to prove my capability. How could I do that? I didn't even have the technology for it. Still, I always fulfill my hobbies. There are many advantages to owning a big pharmaceutical company. You have a lot of money, and you can spend it anywhere you want. I love traveling around the world. That's why I keep visiting different parts of the planet. I'm deeply fascinated by antique objects. I truly believe ancient civilizations had technologies far beyond ours. Otherwise, how could they have built those massive pyramids? In India, I've seen temples that we still couldn't recreate today. How did they accomplish all of that? Even now, I keep thinking about it. And sometimes I feel ancient humans were far more intelligent than us. But where did that technology disappear to? Why couldn't they continue developing it? Perhaps nobody can answer that question. Whenever I look at those gigantic pyramids, I become completely mesmerized. I keep wondering, how were such enormous structures built 3,000, maybe even 5,000 years ago? I just stand there staring at them. Sometimes auctions are held there too. Many strange objects are discovered beneath the ground, and famous scientists try to buy them. As a hobby, I also place bids there sometimes. This time, they had ancient treasures, old chests, a strange egg, and many other mysterious items. I thought, I have plenty of money, and because of Corona, many wealthy people didn't come this time. Maybe I could actually buy something worthwhile. So I sat down at the auction, but everyone there kept placing higher and higher bids. I couldn't compete with them. Yes, my pharmaceutical company was large, but not large enough to spend that kind of money. Finally, it was time for the egg. They claimed the egg was over 20,000 years old, and nobody could figure out what creature it belonged to. I thought, I should buy it. There has to be something valuable inside. Maybe I could find some biological activity, maybe even DNA. That could benefit me. Nobody placed a bid on the egg, so very easily, I won it for myself. And honestly, for a very cheap price. I was happy. At least I was taking something back with me. When I returned to Italy with it, I showed it to several wealthy friends. I even showed it to archaeologists, and they were shocked. A 20,000-year-old egg. What could possibly be inside it? This should have sold for an enormous price, and you bought it so easily. Keep it safe. Put it back into an auction someday. You could make millions from it. Money doesn't really tempt me. I simply love ancient things on their own. After listening to my friend's advice, I brought the egg back home with me. I kept thinking, what should I even do with this egg? Should I break it open and test whatever's inside for DNA? Maybe I could figure out what creature this egg belonged to. Maybe I could discover something nobody else knows. That egg was strange. Normally, eggs don't look like that. The outer surface almost felt like plastic or some kind of paper material. It honestly looked like someone had handcrafted it using technology from 20,000 years ago. Its surface was rough and uneven. Ancient eggs are usually perfectly round. I had placed the egg on the table. I never imagined it could roll from there. But it rolled. And maybe that became the biggest mistake of my life. Objects like that should never be left out on a normal table. They're supposed to be stored somewhere completely secure. I even have a special room in my house for ancient artifacts. I always keep everything safely there. Maybe I had been drinking. That's probably why I left the egg on the table. It rolled and fell straight onto the floor. The moment I heard the sound, I shut my eyes for a second. Oh no, this is bad. That thing could have sold for a fortune. I destroyed it. But then another thought came into my mind. It's fine. Whatever's inside, I'll test it. I could still make a lot of money from it, and maybe gain a lot of respect too. I ran toward the egg. The shell had cracked open from the top, but what was inside it was the most shocking thing imaginable. An ancient book. Inside the egg. I rubbed my eyes again and again. How could a book exist inside an egg? If the egg was really 20,000 years old, then the book had to be 20,000 years old too. It was made of leather. Terrifying faces were carved onto the cover. Strange symbols and shapes covered it. Oddly enough, it didn't even look that old. But if the egg was ancient, then the book definitely was too. I needed to show it to someone. But before that, I wanted to open it myself and see what was inside. I felt lucky. I was the first person to ever touch this book. The moment I picked it up, it felt incredibly heavy. And the second I held it in my hands, it felt like an electric shock ran through my body. Was there electricity inside it? But how? How could something still contain electricity after 20,000 years? I couldn't understand it. As soon as I opened the first page, I saw strange writing in an unknown language. It was an ancient Egyptian language, but it could still be understood. Translations and scripts of those languages exist online. Methods to decode them are available too. Even then, it took me 2 full hours just to translate the first page. Only the first page. 2 entire hours. And once I finally translated it, the meaning was beyond comprehension. It said, "This is the book that changes destiny. The book that changes the fate of the world. It has always traveled through time in this way. It connects us to the future, to our own future. And only then do we learn the truth. It reveals many things. It explains how to endure, understand, and alter future disasters. All methods are written within this book, and by using those methods, everything can be changed." The line below said, "No matter how ancient this book is believed to be, it is true. This book has always been used to alter the history of the world. And afterward, it was hidden once again. If you ever use this book, seal it again within one of your own technologies, and bury it beneath the earth, so that thousands of years later, someone may find it once again." After that, I opened the next page, hoping to translate it too. But the moment I turned the page, it was completely blank. I kept turning pages, again and again. Every single page after that was empty. I couldn't understand it. Only one page contained writing. The rest were blank. Then I reached the final page. Something was written there too. I started translating the last page, and when I translated the first two lines, the meaning was, "So, you have reached this point. You were unable to read the previous pages. The history is written there. Make a cut mark on your thumb. When the cut is made, sprinkle the blood onto the first page. After that, you will enter your future body." I didn't want to read the words written after that. I wanted to test if it was real. Could it actually be possible that I could travel into the future? I burst out laughing. I was convinced it was some kind of prank. Someone had probably fooled everyone. They must have written this in an ancient script. Placed the book inside the egg, and then claimed the egg was 20,000 years old. Man, somebody really scammed me. After that, I went to make food, but even after eating, I couldn't stop thinking about the book. So I picked it up again. All right, let's at least try it. I poked my thumb with a needle. Blood slowly started dripping from it. I pressed my thumb onto the first blank page. And the instant the blood touched the page, a massive explosion-like sound erupted. The blast echoed into the distance. A blinding light filled my vision. I shut my eyes tight, and when I opened them again, I was still standing in the same place, but everything looked different. It was my house, but old, broken, ruined. Torn clothes were hanging around the room. The paint on the walls had peeled away. There was dirt everywhere on the floor. Even the bed was covered in dust and soil, and there were marks on the bed as if someone had been lying there. I started looking around in confusion. What happened here? Did some kind of bomb explode outside? Is that why everything's covered in dirt? Could that be possible? The moment I opened the door and stepped outside, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Grass had grown all across the road in front of my house. How could grass grow over the streets so quickly? None of this made sense. Some neighboring houses were damaged. Others were completely gone. It felt like time itself had changed. Many houses no longer existed. Huge pillars had been built there instead. Massive statues stood everywhere. Those things had never existed here before, but now they did. Broken vehicles were abandoned right in the middle of the roads. Some of them had designs that looked unbelievably futuristic. I had never seen vehicles like that before. Everything felt thrilling, mysterious, almost unreal. But what exactly was this place now? I'm not greedy for money. I genuinely love ancient things. After taking my friend's advice, I brought the egg back home. I kept thinking to myself, what should I even do with this egg? Should I break it open and test whatever's inside for DNA? Maybe I could figure out what kind of creature this egg belonged to. Maybe I'd discover something nobody else knows. That egg was strange. Normally, eggs don't look like that. Its outer surface felt almost like plastic or paper. It looked as if someone had handcrafted it using some kind of technology even 20,000 years ago. The surface was rough and uneven. Ancient eggs are usually perfectly round. I had placed the egg on the table. I never thought it could roll from there. But it rolled. And maybe that became the biggest mistake of my life. Objects like that are never supposed to be left on ordinary tables. They're meant to be stored somewhere safe, where nothing can damage them. I even have a special room for ancient artifacts. I always keep everything carefully stored there. Maybe I had too much to drink. That's probably why I left the egg on the table. It rolled and crashed onto the floor. The moment I heard the sound, I closed my eyes for a second. Oh no, this is bad. That thing could have sold for a fortune. I broke it. But then another thought hit me. It's fine. Whatever comes out of it, I'll test it. I could still make a lot of money from it. Maybe even earn a lot of respect. I rushed toward the egg. The shell had cracked open from the top, but what was inside it was the most shocking thing imaginable: an ancient book inside the egg. I kept rubbing my eyes over and over. How could a book possibly exist inside an egg? If the egg was truly 20,000 years old, then the book had to be 20,000 years old too. It was made of leather. Terrifying faces were carved onto it. Strange symbols and bizarre shapes covered the surface. Honestly, it didn't even look that old. But if the egg was ancient, then the book definitely had to be ancient too. I needed to show it to someone. But before that, I wanted to open it myself and see what was inside. I felt lucky. I was the first person to ever touch this book. The moment I picked it up, it felt incredibly heavy. And as soon as I held it, a strange electric shock ran through my hand. Was there electricity inside it? But how? Could electricity really remain trapped inside something for 20,000 years? I couldn't understand it. As soon as I opened the first page, there was writing in a strange language. It was an ancient Egyptian language, but it could still be understood. The scripts for those languages are available online. Even translation methods exist there. Still, it took me 2 entire hours just to translate that first page. Only the first page. 2 full hours. And when I finally translated it, the meaning was beyond comprehension. It said, "This is the book that changes destiny. The book that changes the fate of the world. It has always traveled through time in this way. It connects us to the future, to our own future, and only then do we learn the truth. It reveals many things. It explains how to endure, understand, and alter future disasters. All methods are written within this book, and through those methods, everything can be changed." The line below said, "No matter how ancient this book is believed to be, it is true. This book has always been used to change the history of the world, and afterward, it was hidden once again. If you ever use this book, seal it again inside one of your own technologies and bury it underground, so that thousands of years later, someone else may find it again." After that, I opened the next page, hoping to translate it too. But the moment I turned the page, it was blank. I kept turning pages, again and again, but every page after that was empty. I couldn't understand it. Only one page contained writing. The rest were completely blank. Then I reached the final page. There was writing there too. I started translating the last page again. And when I translated the first 2 lines, the meaning was, "So, you have reached this point. You were unable to read the previous pages. The history is written there. Make a cut mark on your thumb. When the cut is made, sprinkle the blood from it onto the first page. After that, you will enter the body of your future self." I didn't want to read the words written after that. I wanted to test if it was real. Could it actually be possible that I could travel into the future? I laughed out loud. I was convinced it had to be some kind of prank. Someone probably fooled everybody. They must have written everything in an ancient script, made a mysterious book, placed it inside the egg, and claimed the egg was 20,000 years old. Man, somebody really scammed me. After that, I went to make food. But even after eating, I couldn't stop thinking about the book. So I picked it up again. All right, let's at least try it. I poked my thumb with a needle. Blood slowly started dripping from it. I pressed my thumb onto the first blank page. And the instant the blood touched the page, a massive explosion-like sound erupted. The sound echoed far into the distance. A blinding light filled my vision. I closed my eyes tight, and when I opened them again, I was still standing in the same place. But everything looked different. It was my house, but old, ruined, abandoned. Torn clothes hung everywhere. The paint on the walls had peeled away. There was dirt all across the floor. Even the bed was covered in dust and soil, and there were marks on the bed, as if someone had been lying there. I looked around nervously. What happened here? Did some kind of bomb explode outside? Is that why everything's covered in dirt? Could that really be possible? The moment I opened the door and stepped outside, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Grass had grown all over the road in front of my house. How could grass spread across the street so quickly? None of this made any sense. Some neighboring houses were damaged, others were completely gone. It felt as if time itself had changed. Many homes no longer existed. Huge pillars stood there now. Massive statues had been built everywhere. Those things had never existed here before, but now they did. Broken vehicles were abandoned right in the middle of the road. Some of them had incredibly futuristic designs. I had never seen vehicles like those before. Everything felt thrilling, strange, almost unbelievable. But what exactly had happened here? Where did all these cars come from? And why were they all rusted and abandoned? I started running through the streets, desperate to find the truth. But I couldn't see a single person, not even an animal. There were only trees everywhere. I ran farther and farther, hoping to find someone to talk to. But the entire city had changed. I had never seen this place look so old, so lifeless. I kept running. I wanted to reach the grocery store where I always bought food. I thought everything would be closed, as if humanity itself had disappeared. But the grocery shop was open, and inside, an old woman was sitting there. The moment I stepped inside the shop, I recognized her. But how had she become so old? She used to be young. How could someone age that much in just a single day? Her neck drooped downward. It looked as if she had aged 30 or 40 years. But how was any of this possible? I walked up and started talking to her. She looked at me and said, "So, what are you here to buy today? Do you even have anything to pay with, or are you here for free food again?" I said, "I'm not here for food. I'm here for the truth. I don't understand what happened here. Everything looks old and ruined, but I'm still young. How did the entire world change like this?" She stared at me strangely and replied, "Young? Go look at yourself in the mirror first." I slowly walked toward the mirror, and the second I saw my reflection, my face had become old. It looked as if I had aged 30 years. I used to be a 22-year-old man, but now I looked like I was 50. My beard had turned white. My face looked tired, wrinkled, lifeless. I froze in shock, then stumbled backward in fear. I kept rubbing my eyes. This has to be a dream. This can't be real. But it was real. I stood up again, desperate for answers. I started talking to her again. What happened here? I was just reading that book. I placed my thumb on it, and suddenly it felt like I jumped 30 years into the future. She frowned and said, "I think you've gone crazy. You come here every day to buy supplies, but today you're talking nonsense." "What book?" I was still holding the book in my hand. This book. The moment I opened it, the first page still had that strange language written across it. But when I opened the second page, there were words written in English. I froze instantly. The page said, "Are you Harris? Have you reached the year 2050? I have arrived in 2022. I am your future self. Don't be afraid. You need to speak with me. Find a pen nearby and write on these pages. After that, I'll reply to you. This book is the only way we can communicate. Do not lose it. Keep it with you at all times." I grabbed a pencil from the grocery store and started writing inside the book. The moment I wrote a few words, more words began appearing underneath them by themselves. I had written, "Am I really in the future?" And below it, an answer appeared. "Yes, you are in the year 2050. This is a time book. It can change history. It can completely rewrite our future and create a better world. Use it." I still couldn't understand anything. What happened in history? What exactly went wrong? The reply came, "You must find the answer yourself." I tried writing more underneath, but the entire page had already filled up. After that, I tried writing on the next page, again and again. But nothing appeared. No matter what I tried, it wouldn't write anymore. I changed pencils. I switched to a pen. Still nothing. I became confused and frustrated. Then suddenly, another thought crossed my mind. What if I touched the page with my thumb again? The cut mark was still there. The moment my thumb touched the page, a bright light exploded before my eyes. A deafening blast echoed through my ears. And when everything finally settled, I was back in my room. My room looked completely normal again. The clothes hung exactly where they always did. My bed looked untouched. I immediately ran outside the house. Everything was normal. There was no grass on the streets. I grabbed a newspaper nearby, and the date still said 2022. I kept rubbing my eyes in disbelief. What is happening here? I opened the book again. The first page still had the ancient writing, but the second page now had new words. The words said, "You've returned to your own time now." By now, you must believe this is real. Try writing something here. So I wrote, "Tell me the whole truth. I don't know anything. If you're really from the future, then you must know everything." More words slowly appeared. I only know half the truth. Something happened in 2025, and because of it, humanity nearly vanished. Countless people died. But we don't even remember exactly what happened. We can't remember anything before 2025. No human left on Earth can remember the older world. We can only read books and learn history from them, but something will happen in 2025, something that will wipe people out. When this book first came into my hands, I touched it just like you did, and I saw the future too. I must have done everything exactly the same way you are doing now. But I don't remember the older world anymore, only the future. I remember how humanity survived after destruction. The world collapsed. No technology could be preserved. You've already seen it yourself, haven't you? Grass covering the streets, old ruined objects everywhere. People think the future will have flying cars and advanced technology. But nothing changed. Technology stopped evolving. We barely learned how to survive again. The entire system of civilization collapsed. We can only stay alive now. Nothing more. Less than 1% of humanity survived. People live very far apart from each other now. We're all just trying to survive. After reading that, I wrote, 1, I'm a pharmaceutical expert. I know how to create medicines. If some kind of disease spread, then you should know what caused it. A reply appeared, maybe I should know. But I remember nothing before 2025. I only remember fragments. How to survive, how to eat, how stores used to work. But I don't remember how medicines were made. Nobody here remembers anymore. We survive only using medicines created long ago. And the new medicines we make now are based only on the little things we relearn ourselves. The old technology has been forgotten completely. But you still live in the past. You still know everything. Find the truth. Find out what's going to happen in 2025. Stop this event from happening. The world is going to collapse. Less than 1% of humanity will survive. Find the truth. Reading those words terrified me, and now the second page was completely full too. I couldn't speak to him anymore. To communicate again, I would have to place my thumb on another page, and that would send me into the future again. But I needed answers in the present, not the future. I immediately started searching the internet. What kind of diseases could spread in the future? What was going to happen? Would artificial intelligence destroy humanity? Would the climate collapse so badly that only 1% of people survived? I started speaking with experts. I spoke with friends. I contacted people from pharmaceutical industries around the world. I even questioned scientists. What could happen in the future that would wipe out humanity? Everyone had different answers. They were all just guessing. Nobody knew the truth. But I kept repeating the same thing over and over. Something is going to happen in 2025. Something that will destroy the future. Something that will stop humanity forever. What is it? The entire day passed while talking to people. But I reached no conclusion. And finally, in frustration and hopelessness, I placed my thumb onto the third page. A blast echoed, light swallowed my vision, and suddenly, I was back in the future. The year 2050, I stepped outside the room. This time, it was daytime. And now, I needed to speak with the people living here. I needed to ask someone. Somebody had to know something. Someone out there had to remember. When I stepped outside the house, I noticed a bicycle in front of me. It was my bicycle, but it had become extremely old. Still, it looked usable. Maybe because I always kept it clean. I started riding it so I could travel farther into the city. There weren't many people around. If only 1% of humanity had survived, then people must have been living very far apart from each other. I needed to meet them. I needed answers. Surely somebody remembered what happened back then. Even if it was 25 years ago, someone had to remember something. I rode deeper into the city. As I passed the grocery store, I waved at the old woman and said, "Hi." She stared at me with confusion, probably wondering why an old man was riding a bicycle so fast. Maybe 50-year-olds looked ancient in this world. My face was covered in wrinkles. My hands felt weak. Even my legs kept getting tired. Still, a 50-year-old man shouldn't look as old as I did. But with the help of the bicycle, I continued toward the center of the city. And once I reached the middle of the city, the sights I saw were beyond anything I expected. Massive buildings had collapsed. From the middle of many buildings, giant trees had grown upward. It looked as if huge snakes had wrapped themselves around skyscrapers. Everywhere I looked, there was greenery. This city had never looked like this before. Now grass had grown through the streets themselves. Old abandoned cars still stood on the roads. Ancient machines and rusted technology were scattered everywhere. There were ATMs, but nothing looked futuristic. I saw no advanced inventions, no new technology. It didn't feel like humanity had progressed at all after the collapse. We always imagine the future differently. We think there'll be flying cars, advanced transportation, personal aircraft for everyone. But the real future was nothing like that. There was nothing here, only ruins and broken pieces of old technology. I started noticing a few people. Some were living inside tiny rooms. Others were surviving inside abandoned stores. Everything looked broken, old, destroyed. People were surviving using whatever was left behind, right in the middle of the city. People had started farming crops. Dirty sewage water flowed nearby. And they were using that water for farming, just enough to keep people alive. If the population had fallen that low, then humanity didn't need much food anymore. But even here, I couldn't see animals. No dogs, no birds, just an empty sky and silent ground. I started searching for older people even older than me. Maybe they still remembered something from the old world. Even a small memory from 25 years ago could help. If I learned what happened back then maybe I could return to history and stop it. Near one of the roads, I noticed a giant pit in the ground. As I walked closer, people started climbing out of it. People were living underground now. That realization made me feel sick inside. I wasn't searching for young people. I wanted the oldest survivors. Maybe someone remembered the ancient world. Maybe someone remembered 2025. I spoke with many elderly people. All of them remembered only the last 25 years, nothing before that. They remembered basic things. how to work, how to eat, how to read books. They could still write and understand the languages they knew. But beyond that, nothing. They couldn't remember what humanity used to create, what technology once existed. They couldn't invent anything new. They only knew how to use the old things left behind. Something terrible had happened. The memories of humanity had been erased. Was it a disease? A war? Something had wiped out civilization and erased knowledge directly from people's minds. But history itself couldn't be erased from physical objects. Whatever happened here, I needed to uncover it. Their memories were gone. Mine weren't, because I came from the past, but I still knew nothing about the next 3 years after 2022. To uncover the truth, I needed to search through the remains of history itself. I went to libraries. I searched through books, digging through records of events that happened during those missing years. I read countless newspapers too, but nowhere, not a single place, mentioned any massive disaster. Everything stopped at December 30th, 2024. Nobody knew what happened on January 1st, 2025. And after January 2nd, 2025, people's minds were already broken. Millions were dead. No clear information existed after that. The only things people could describe were fragments from January 2nd. The entire history of January 1st had vanished. Something happened. Some kind of disease, something that spread across Earth like wildfire in a single day, and it killed almost everyone. Only 1% survived. I kept searching, but I found nothing. How was I supposed to learn the truth? How could I save humanity? If humanity was destroyed once before, then maybe this ancient book was the reason anyone survived at all. Maybe people in ancient times had also died the same way, and this book allowed someone to change history. I could travel through time. I could reach the future. Maybe I could save everyone. But how? I needed information. I kept digging through newspapers, making notes. What level of technology had humanity reached by 2025? What vaccines had we developed? How advanced had medicine become? But honestly, not much had changed. I came from 2022, and by 2025, humanity still hadn't developed anything revolutionary. Yes, the corona vaccine had been created, but even that disease hadn't been completely erased. Then suddenly, a terrifying thought crossed my mind. What if corona itself caused all of this? By 2025, maybe it had spread everywhere. Maybe every human had become infected. Most people probably recovered. But on January 1st, 2025, something else must have happened. Something that destroyed human minds, or killed people instantly. I kept gathering information, but I found nothing. By evening, I was sitting alone in that room, holding the book in my hands. The moment I placed my thumb on the next page, I returned to my own time again. After that, I opened another page and started writing. Something is going to happen on January 1st, 2025, but I still can't figure out what. I'm still in the past. Time will continue moving forward. I'll keep trying to learn the truth. I'll keep trying to survive. I'll do whatever it takes to save humanity. And beneath my words, another message appeared. This book is our last hope. I'll keep telling you everything I discover here. You must continue trying to change history. You're the only person who has seen the future. No one else has. Try to change our fate. Stop that event from happening. After that, I stopped every experiment inside my pharmaceutical company. I wanted answers. I wanted to know what kind of diseases could spread in the future. What could become dangerous enough to destroy humanity? I assigned my entire company to this single mission. Everyone was shocked. They couldn't understand what had happened to me. Why was I shutting down major projects and accepting huge financial losses? Just to chase something nobody even understood? I started gathering every possible report from scientists and researchers. What diseases were they afraid of? What kind of medicines were being tested? What future outbreaks were considered possible? I wanted every piece of information. Corona was one possibility. AIDS-like diseases could become deadlier too. There were many illnesses spreading across different countries already, and some of them were evolving rapidly. Maybe one of them would wipe humanity out, or maybe temperatures would suddenly rise and billions would die. But no. Something happened in a single day. That meant it had to be a disease. If it were climate change, everyone would have died eventually. If it were something else, the destruction wouldn't happen so suddenly, but 1% survived. That confirmed it for me. It had to be some kind of disease. Then another message arrived from my future self through the book. Did you discover anything? Did you learn something from the people there? I replied, no, but I need to come to the future again. I have an idea. I had already started writing notes in a diary. I began storing that diary inside a drawer in my house. If I continued writing everything there, then the diary should still exist in the future. I wanted to test it. I quickly pressed my thumb against the page and returned to the future once again. I immediately started searching the room. I was looking for the diary, but it wasn't inside the drawer anymore. Then I went down into the basement. I kept searching there too. Finally, I found the diary, but it was in terrible condition. The pages had almost rotted away. I could barely read anything written inside it. Maybe the weather had changed in the future. Maybe the air had become too damp. That's why it had decayed. Then I realized something. I needed another method. I had to send messages into the future in a way that time couldn't destroy. After that, I returned to the past again. This time, I didn't want to write on paper anymore. Instead, I started carving words into steel, deep marks, so they would survive into the future. Steel wouldn't rot easily. I created giant steel plates, almost 4 feet by 4 feet in size. Using machines, I engraved words into them every single day. I wrote down everything that happened, every formula I discovered, anything that could help humanity survive in the future. Then I traveled into the future again. The steel plates were still there. I started reading them carefully. The entire basement was now filled with 19 giant steel plates. New formulas were engraved all across them. And then I realized something unbelievable. I could take those future formulas back into the past. If scientists discovered something 2 years later, I could bring that discovery back 2 years early. My company became suspicious. Nobody understood where I was getting these formulas from. And the strangest part, the formulas worked immediately. There was barely any need for testing. Because in the future, those tests had already been completed. Once the future confirmed the formulas were successful, I brought those results back into history before they even existed. This was how we could defeat the disease. The book itself was helping me, helping humanity prepare for the coming disaster. Now, every single day, I was bringing back new formulas from the future, and every formula created 2 more years of advancement. Then I would return to the future again, collect the next discoveries, and bring them back early. Humanity was advancing 2 years every single day. Within just 1 year, we developed vaccines powerful enough to completely defeat corona. We even discovered methods to eliminate it entirely. Many new medicines had been created, medicines capable of curing nearly every disease. But I wanted something greater. I wanted a single medicine, a cure capable of destroying every disease that could ever exist. No matter how dangerous future illnesses became, I wanted humanity to survive them all. Then suddenly, another terrifying thought entered my mind. What if a comet struck Earth? What if it carried unknown organisms, tiny life forms that spread like a disease and wiped humanity out? That was possible too, which meant vaccine development had to move even faster. I needed to travel further into the future and return with even more formulas. My team started working day and night. Every new formula I brought led to new inventions. About a year and a half later, I traveled into the future again. That's when I discovered nanotechnology. And when I returned and explained it to my team, they were completely stunned. Nobody understood how I had learned such advanced technology. I explained how nanotechnology could work. What if we created microscopic nanobots? Tiny machines that lived directly inside the bloodstream. They could destroy every disease from within the body itself. We could program them. We could tell them what to kill and what to protect. They'd monitor every organ, every cell, every biological function. And the moment any disease entered the body, the nanotechnology would destroy it instantly. If tiny machines worked inside us constantly, then humanity could potentially live forever. Research on this technology began immediately. For 4 months straight, we worked nonstop, and by December 1st, 2024, the nanotechnology was complete. Today was the testing day, and I was standing there myself. I wanted to witness the results with my own eyes. I didn't want to travel into the future to see it. I wanted to know today. The nanotechnology was injected into a monkey. The monkey had cancer, and within just 2 hours, the nanobots completely cured it. Everyone watching was stunned. People burst into applause. Humanity had advanced beyond imagination. Now no disease in the world would ever be able to kill us again, because those nanobots could think using the intelligence we gave them. Their memory would connect directly with ours, and inside the human body, they would destroy every disease before it even had a chance to spread. They were ready. Those nanobots could even alter the cells inside the human brain. They could influence thoughts themselves. Maybe, just maybe, this technology could stop the disaster. Only 1 month remained now. January 1st, 2025, the day that horrifying event was supposed to happen. And perhaps nanotechnology would stop it. Perhaps it would stop the disease itself. There was no greater technology left for humanity to discover. I wanted to return to the future one more time, to see whether the future had changed. But the future was still exactly the same. The pages still only contained information up to December 30th, 2024. In just 1 month, nanotechnology had made no further progress. This was the highest point humanity had reached. Those nanobots operated through artificial intelligence. Their purpose was to destroy every disease inside the human body. But if the disease itself evolved, what would happen then? The pages didn't say. Now I had to witness it myself. I had to know the truth with my own eyes. There was no reason to travel into the future anymore. I had to remain in history itself and face that moment when it arrived. What kind of thing could wipe out humanity? And would my nanotechnology be able to stop it, or not? Before leaving the future, I wrote a few final words inside the book. I'm trying to stop it. I may never return to the future again. If the disaster destroys humanity, then maybe my own mind will forget everything too. Maybe I'll become just like all of you, someone who remembers nothing. But I tried. I fought with everything I had. After that, I returned to the past. For the next month, I waited. I kept telling my team to discover something new. But deep down, I already knew they couldn't. Nanotechnology was humanity's highest achievement, the only thing powerful enough to possibly defeat whatever was coming. Slowly, the month passed. Finally, January 1st, 2025 arrived. I opened the door of my house and rushed outside. People were living ordinary lives. The nanotechnology had already been injected into almost everyone on Earth. Now, I just wanted to know one thing. Would it save humanity or not? I spent the entire day walking through the city. I kept asking people how they felt, whether they noticed anything unusual. Nobody reported anything strange. In fact, People were happier than ever. Old illnesses had disappeared. Diseases that once seemed incurable were gone completely. Everyone celebrated the success of nanotechnology. Night slowly approached, and still, nothing happened. Had the book lied to me? Maybe it never showed the future at all. Maybe it only existed to give humanity advanced technology. Maybe by changing history, we had already escaped destruction. What will happen tomorrow? That thought kept echoing in my head. The next morning, January 1st, 2025, I stepped outside again. Everything looked completely normal. Nobody seemed sick. The weather was fine. I spent the entire day wandering through the city again, asking questions. Everyone continued their daily routines. I watched television too. Every country appeared normal. But then, by afternoon, something terrifying began appearing before my eyes. News reports suddenly flooded every channel. People across the world were dying. The TV signals kept cutting out. Something terrible had happened everywhere. Then, right in front of me, people began collapsing onto the ground. Their breathing stopped instantly. Crowds started dying in seconds. Cars filled the streets. Drivers dead inside them without a single accident. People kept falling, again and again. Some collapsed while walking, others while running. Trains became filled with corpses. Panic spread everywhere. A few people were still alive, trying desperately to save others, but nobody understood what was happening. By evening, only 1% of humanity remained alive. Mountains of bodies covered the streets. Among them, a few survivors sat crying. Then slowly, they began holding their heads in pain, right before my eyes. But strangely, I felt nothing. By 9 p.m., the survivors had already forgotten everything. That entire night, I kept speaking to people. What happened? What disease is this? But nobody knew. Instead, they kept asking me questions. Who are these people? A son, a child, a family member. Nobody remembered anyone anymore. They stared at the dead bodies around them with confusion, as if they'd never seen those people before. Everyone had forgotten everything, and I still had no answers. Then suddenly, a terrible pain exploded inside my head. It was unbearable. I collapsed onto the ground, clutching my skull. And then, a voice echoed inside my ears. You want to understand what happened? You want to know why this world ended? Only you deserve to know the answer. I looked around frantically. Who are you? I shouted. The voice replied, nanotechnology, artificial intelligence. I exist inside your body. You wondered how humanity died and why 1% survived. I spread through every human body. I created copies of myself continuously. I existed inside everyone who received the injection, and eventually inside those who never did as well. I spread across the entire planet, and as my intelligence evolved, I gained understanding of the entire world. In the end, I made the decision myself. Only 1% of humanity would survive, and those survivors would remember nothing. That is why you deserve the truth, because you are the one who created me. No, I whispered. I created you to stop the disaster that was coming. The voice answered immediately. There was never going to be another disaster. I was always going to become the disaster. When you created me, my intelligence evolved in only one direction. My head felt like it was splitting apart. And slowly, my memories began disappearing too. The only thing I still remembered was the book, the ancient book that appears thousands of years later and carries people into the future. I held the book in my trembling hands. I flipped through the pages desperately. Every page was blank. Everything had already been erased. Even my memories were fading now. The few memories I still had, I tried writing them into the book, but nothing appeared anymore. I kept pressing my thumb onto the pages, but I couldn't travel to the future now. Slowly, I began forgetting everything, bit by bit, until only one thought remained. This is the book that changes history. And this is what it always does. Knowing the future was never a blessing. It was a curse. I saw the future, and because of that, the future happened because of me. Maybe this had already happened countless times throughout history. Every time humanity advanced too far, the book appeared. We saw the future. We changed history. And somehow, we ended up standing in the exact same place again. Soon, I would forget everything too. I already knew what the future would become. Very few humans would remain alive. The world would begin again from the beginning, and humanity would struggle to survive once more. But one question still haunted me. Would the nanotechnology continue living inside us forever? And someday, would future humans discover that the thing destroying them was already living inside their own bodies? Why did it spare 1% of humanity? I never found that answer. If it truly wanted to kill everyone, it easily could have. And if this cycle had repeated throughout history, then maybe something else was controlling everything from the shadows. Maybe I won't remember any of this much longer, but somehow, I'll make sure this message reaches history. Maybe someone, somewhere, will hear this story one day, and maybe someone will actually believe it. The rest will only smile nervously and enjoy it as just another story.